Now, so welcome everyone to today's workshop on resilience and burnout, our masterclass. My name is Ezra Ben Israel, and I am the founder and owner of Edifying Answers. Just to let you all know that I will be recording this webinar, just so you know from the onstart. So, if I get my clicker to work, there we go. So yeah, so Edifying Answers, I have my own website, which you can have a look at afterwards. There's lots of different information on there regarding what I do, the different training workshops that are available, but I've also got a whole range of my mind mapping tools that I've developed over the years and used with various different clients and service users to do with a whole range of different topics. Some of them are free and some of them are at a cost, so do have a look in your own time. So, one of the fundamental things about Edifying Answers is very much about unlocking insight and about connecting the dots so people can have a clearer understanding about themselves, why they function the way they do, why they think the way they do, and why they operate the way they do. This workshop will be another one of those where we're going to really delve into what's really going on in the topic of resilience and how we can boost and develop it. So in terms of how the session is going to run for today, we will be using the chat box facility. So if you are new to using Zoom, I'll just quickly go over what it is and what's the kind of etiquette for this webinar. So we will be using the chat to kind of talk about or give any kind of positive statements that you want to talk about. There may be things that come up during the webinar that you want to just leave a comment on or even ask a question on. So use the chat throughout the webinar, and I will be asking you to type in things at certain points so that then I'll read out the answers and we'll have little discussions around those things. So in terms of other facilities that's available, on your phone or on your tablet, whatever you're using, you'll see there's the three dots that you can click on. When you do click on that, it gives you also the ability to either use the reactions, which is thumbs up, or a clap to say that you really agree with something. So when you do hear something that you think that was really on point, give me the thumbs up. And if there's something that you want to clap about, then give me the clap. Let me know I'm on the right track. So in terms of with this webinar, we will be exploring quite a lot of different areas, which include thought processes, the subconscious mind, the rectangular activating system, mind traps, stress and cortisol, the science of sleep, mindfulness, and the 5 ways of well-being. So we've got a lot to cover. But what I will do, because obviously we can't cover all of this in detail in the time of this webinar, but what I will be doing is in your pack, which you'll get at the end, it's going to have a whole load of resources in it, the stuff that we've covered in this webinar, and links to all of these different areas so you can do your further research and study if you choose to. So going on to the questions that when you first filled out to register for this webinar, one of the questions was, what is one topic that you struggle with in terms of resilience? And these are the answers that people came up with, which was quite interesting really, because I think with all of these answers here, it kind of sums up everything really. Everything that whenever I've worked with someone or spoken to someone or helped someone around struggling with resilience over the years, this kind of encapsulates it all. So we've got emotions, we've got other people's attitude, self-care, emotional well-being, stress, being positive, self-doubt, and anxiety. And in terms of what we're going to be covering today, we'll probably be covering all of this. Maybe not so much anxiety, but what we're looking at and talking about would be things that will help to reduce anxiety. And the second question was, what is one thing that you are currently doing to boost your resilience? And so one of the things was around walking and running, so that kind of exercise. Eating healthier, eating is very important. So our body, if we think of our body as a car, the food is the petrol. And If you are a car that needs to have diesel and you're putting petrol in it, it's going to conk out. So eating healthily is fundamental in terms of our energy levels, in terms of our focus, and so that we can be as resilient as we can be. The third one was getting enough sleep. So we're going to be looking at that a bit later, the science of sleep and how important that is, but this is another fundamental one. Staying connected, absolutely so important in terms of staying connected, especially during this time of self-isolation and COVID-19. And finally, it was mindfulness and reflection. And interestingly, all of these we're going to be looking at in this webinar. So you're on track. You're on track with the stuff that you're doing, which is good. So we're looking at resilience today, and I think it's important at the beginning that we kind of set the record straight, because you are the director of your life. You are the one who has the final say as to what happens. You are the one who is responsible for you. And so as we are having this take, there's only one take of this. We won't get another chance to do this webinar on learning resilience. This is your life. And so I want you to be aware of that as we're going through the session, and be in control and mindful of how you're going to adapt and respond to these things that are presented today. And not only are you the director, but you're also the CEO of your well-being. The buck stops with you. And I think it's really important that we're all aware of that, because we are in control of our destiny and our future by the actions we take day by day. So one of the important things that I think is always good to highlight to people is that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. If an egg is broken by an inside force, then life begins. And great things happen from the inside. And so with all the stuff that we're going to look at today, it's about you drawing that out and you being mindful of that and you applying it to your life from inside. It's not about me telling you what to do. I'm going to present you with a whole range of tools, but it's up to you how you want to use them and when you choose to use them to better yourself. Because when it comes from within you, life will flow. If it's come from me telling you, it will only destroy things. And so be mindful of that, and use these tools as and when need from within. And remember that you are the gatekeeper of your own destiny, and I am the gatekeeper of my own destiny. So as we're going through this webinar, I want you to set an intention. What is your goal and what is your desire? What are you hoping to achieve and what are you hoping to get out of this? And it's very important that you make that decision now and start to think about that now, because with all that we look at and with all that we discuss and explore, it's for you to apply what your aim is and allow what we're talking about to line up with that. So what I mean, for example, if for one of your things is for you is to learn coping skills, manage your resilience, then it's important that you have that in mind with all that you're doing. So I know we just had some people just join. If we can put the microphones on mute just so we don't have the feedback. Thank you. And so have intention with what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be discussing lots of informative things, but then what does it mean specifically to you in your life right now? So what is resilience? So resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It's toughness. It is also the ability of a substance or object springing back into shape. So for example, an elastic band, I spoke about the elastic band in my last webinar on mental resilience, and it's about the ability to spring back. Yeah, and it's like, how long does it take for the elastic band to burst? Or how long does it take for you to get back to your normal shape? And that's very much what resilience is about. Because let's face it, life has never told us that we wouldn't go through struggles, difficulties, and hardships. But what resilience is about how quickly you're able to bounce back when you experience that hardship or that difficulty. So psychological resilience is the ability to mentally or emotionally cope with a crisis or to return to pre-crisis status quickly, meaning that something happens, it may shake you, you may experience a certain kind of feeling, anxiety, or whatever it may be, but then you're able to return quickly back to your normal state of mind. And resilience exists when people use mental processes and behaviors in promoting personal assets to protect yourself from the negative effects of stressors. So what does that mean? So a situation happens, something's going on, you have an argument with someone, and then how do you address that? Do you start to ruminate and think about what they're going to say about you and how it's going to be now, and it's going to be difficulties, it's going to be all these problems, and it's not going to be the same, and you go down that rabbit hole? Or do you say to yourself, okay, this has happened, I'm aware of what's gone on, I'm going to go back, have a conversation about this, address this so that we can nip it in the bud? And so you have that conversation, it's sorted, you don't need to worry about it and ruminate over what may be going on next week, next month, next year. And so it's about how you are able to manage things and the personal assets that you have within yourself to keep you on that path of resilience. And we're going to be looking at some of those personal assets in this webinar. So resilience is like an oxygen mask on a plane. Now, the oxygen mask is always there on the plane, but it's not exposed. You can't see it. It's in hidden sight. But as soon as the plane is going under pressure or stress, the oxygen mask will be released immediately to provide the need so that you can survive that situation. And that's very much what resilience is like. If you're having a good day and everything's going fine, you don't need to have resilience. But as soon as there's an argument, there's a stressor, there's a situation, there's a circumstance, you hear bad news, you've got a deadline to meet and you're a bit stressed and a bit anxious, this is when resilience kicks in. And so we're going to be looking at some of the tools that you can use when you are going through those stressful situations, that emotional imbalance, all of those things that you spoke about when you said there's things that you find challenging. And so when we look at resilience, there is so many different areas that helps to boost and grow our resilience. And one of them is having high self-esteem. So when someone has high self-esteem, it means that they think about themselves in a positive way. It means that the thoughts that they entertain about themselves are not self-sabotaging. They don't look at themselves from a deficit point of view, but from a strength-based point of view. And even if there is something that they need to grow or develop in, they look at it from a point of view as this is something that I'm going to grow and develop in, not this is something that I will never be able to achieve. They also have flexibility. Because life is never certain, we never know what's going to happen next. In actual fact, we are guaranteed we will always be experiencing change in our life. And so being flexible and having flexibility with that is a key aspect of resilience. Another one is having strong relationships. And strong relationships doesn't mean that you don't ever have arguments or disagreements. But people of resilience are able to manage and grow and learn and develop and embrace the differences in those relationships so that they can grow as well. There's a saying that says, iron sharpeneth iron. And what that means is that sometimes you need to have someone in your life that will point out the areas in you that need development so that you can be sharpened. If you're always around someone that just says, you're great, you're doing great, and you've got areas that you need to develop in, that's like someone seeing, food stuck in your teeth and don't say that you need to take that out. And so having resilience is about having strong relationships and having people that will actually talk to you about the areas that they feel you need to grow and develop in. But that's completely different from, someone who's tearing you down. Another part of resilience is spiritual freedom. And what I mean by that is in terms of the ability for you to grow, shape, and develop your belief system in a time that you want to do it. It's about having the freedom to be able to express yourself and how you see things from your vantage point. Another element of resilience is positive coping strategies. Now, I want to say every single human being, including a child, has coping strategies, but not necessarily positive ones. There's many people when they're stressed, they may overeat or not eat. They may take substances. That's not necessarily a positive coping strategy, but it is a coping strategy. When people have resilience, they have positive coping strategies. And we will look at some of them a bit later on. And then we have emotional regulation, which is the complete opposite from repressing our emotions. And so when we have emotional regulation, it's when we are able to identify how we are feeling in that moment and then express ourselves in an assertive way. And the complete opposite of that, when we're repressing our emotions, is we feel a certain way and we suppress it and continuously suppress it. And when we do that, we become, it's like a war within. We don't understand ourselves, we're fighting against ourselves, and we realize that we react rather than respond to things. And then we have mindfulness. Now, mindfulness I'm going to touch on later, so I won't say too much on that now. But mindfulness is fundamental in terms of developing your resilience. And then it's having a non-judgmental mind. So being able to think about things, look at things, whether it's within you or other people, without being judgmental, without being harsh with it. It's about having that self-compassion. Resilient people don't put themselves down. So, this is a very interesting quote. It says, "You're going to be happy," said life, "but first I'll make you strong." And it's interesting because for all of us, good things make us feel happy and it makes us feel good, but it doesn't necessarily make us strong. And it's the things that we go through, it's the circumstances that are hard that we have to go through that actually boost and develops our resilience. No one is born with resilience. Resilience is something you learn through each situation and something that you grow in over time. And as this quote says, "I've never met a strong person with an easy past." And so it's not to say when we look at someone and say, oh, they're so strong, they're so resilient, just know that there's a past that they had to go through to get to that place. They didn't just wake up and resilience just was dripping off them. It's a process that we all have to go through. And so, burnout. Let's look at burnout. So what is burnout? Burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So I highlight prolonged stress because stress in itself, in short measures, is actually a good thing. When we have a bit of stress, it helps us to work at an optimum level. It helps us to do things and work to greater abilities. So stress in itself is not a bad thing. But when it's excessive and prolonged stress, that's when it becomes dangerous. And it occurs when you feel overwhelmed and unable to meet constant demands. And as stress levels continue, you begin to lose the interest or motivation that led you to take on a certain role in the first place. And that's what often happens with burnout. It gets to the point where the person says, why bother? I don't even care anymore. I've lost the vision, I've lost the hope, I've lost the purpose behind this. And that could be in a marriage, that could be in a workplace, that could be in relation to a friend, it could be in any area. But burnout, what it does is it reduces your productivity and it zaps your energy, leaving you feeling helpless, hopeless, cynical, and resentful. And if any of you have experienced burnout before, you'd lay testament to this. It really just puts you in a negative place. And eventually, you feel like you have nothing more to give. And that can be one of the worst places to be in, where you where you have to do so much, but you feel you have nothing more to give. And so here are some of the common signs of burnout. So physical symptoms is things like chronic stress, which may lead to symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, intestinal, like bowel and gastro issues, and just naggings and just aches and pains and brain fog. There's all this kind of stuff that is going on, and you're just not your normal self. You tend to make very, silly mistakes that you wouldn't do. And you're wondering, what's going on? Why am I acting like this? Why am I feeling like this? And then you have the emotional exhaustion. So it causes people to feel drained and unable to cope and tired, this fatigue, and it often a lack of energy. And you don't have that ability, that get up and go ability to get things done. And then finally, it reduces your performance. So burnout mainly affects everyday tasks at work or at home. When someone has a job that involves caring for family members, it can be quite difficult for that individual, and they can sometimes become quite resentful of the person that they need to look and care for. So individuals with burnout feel negative about tasks, and they have difficulty concentrating and often lack creativity. So if you're doing something, a role or a job where you need to be creative and you have burnout, you just reach a dead end. And so burnout is something that we want to avoid like the plague. So now we understand what it is and how it affects us. The rest of this webinar is looking at how we prevent that from happening and how we boost our resilience. So let's look at resilience. So there's an interesting thought. I had a conversation with someone a little while back. We was talking about health and eating and dieting and stuff. And she said to me, I just look at a donut and I put on weight. And it was just so funny when we was having this conversation. And I saw this quote and I thought, I'm going to add this. I wish everything was as easy as getting fat. Because for many people, they can just get fat so quickly. And if resilience was as easy as getting fat, everyone will just be so strong, so resilient. But the truth of the matter is, life doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. And that's something that I found to be very true in my life. The old me, one arrow would have sunk the ship. Whereas now I can go through so much more and still go. And that's the beauty of resilience. Resilience is something that you grow in day by day, with experience by experience. And the only way for your resilience to grow is for you to go through something. And that's why I always say, don't just go through the situation, grow through it, because that's what resilience is all about. So we're going to look at the power of the mind. The mind is one of the key areas in terms of where resilience is birthed, grown, nurtured, and developed. And so it's important that we understand how the role that our mind plays in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the resilience that we have. So let's look a bit at the human brain. So you have trillions of cells in your brain, and 100 billion of those cells are neurons, which are designed to transmit information to other cells in the brain. To put it in context, if you took all of those neurons in your brain and put them end to end, there is enough to go around the earth 4 times. So what does this mean? Well, in your head, you have a world of opportunity at your disposal. And as we understand and as we grow and we learn these things, we can make much better decisions that will enhance our resilience. So I have a question. I want you to type your answer in the chat box. How many thoughts on average do you feel that the average person will have in a day? Type your answers in the chat box. So we got 100,000, 4,000, 3.5 million, 10,000. Okay. So let's 4,000. Okay. Oh, oh, let's, and this one is one. Okay. So let's look and see. Someone's writing on the screen. Okay. It is actually 70,000 thoughts. What that looks like is that. That's exactly how many thoughts you have in a day. And many of those thoughts are rumination. They're just going on again and again and again and again. Now, when we understand that, 70,000 thoughts a day, and thoughts are a powerful resource that can either bring us up or tear us down. And you can imagine when you're anxious and you're worried about something and you keep thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, those thoughts are going to zap your energy. But in the same example, if you are thinking good and positive thoughts about yourself and you're constantly thinking on those, they're going to enhance your resilience. So when we're understanding our thoughts, you need to imagine that every thought that you have is like a seed. And if your thoughts are seeds, what does that make you? That makes you the gardener. You are in control of what seeds you are going to plant in the soil of your mind. And it's really important that you understand that. You control your destiny. There's a saying that says, no one has the power to make you feel inferior without your consent. So never give it. And it's important that we understand the power of your thoughts. So when we're thinking about this garden of your mind, you get a choice what you want to grow. Do you want to grow peace, joy, happiness? What is it that you want to grow? What is the intention for you in terms of what you want to grow in your mind? But on the flip side, the bad news is that if you do not tend to your garden with intention, it will become problematic. And the interesting thing with gardens, with any of you who's got a garden, if you do not pay attention in terms of how it grows, what is it that grows automatically? Weeds. And weeds are symbolic to negative thoughts. And if we are not paying attention with the thoughts that we're entertaining, those 70,000 thoughts that we have each day, then we are going to allow those weeds of negative thoughts to grow. And just like weeds in terms of our garden, the weeds in our mind cause the same kind of carnage. And this is what it does. It reduces your productivity. It invades your crops of positive thoughts. It aggressively competes for your attention. You see, there is a war going on inside of every single one of us for the positive and the negative. And if we do not pay attention to the positive, then those negative ones are going to grow and grow violently. They reduce your value and your worth because your negative thoughts work in line with your inner critic to tell you you can't do it, you're rubbish, you're a fool for trying, they're going to laugh at you, it's going to get it wrong, it's not going to work out. All of those things that ruminate is when your negative thoughts are working in hand with your inner critic. And they also harbor diseases. And in terms of your mind, it's mental dis-ease. That is the disease. It's a mental dis-ease that it causes when we are thinking and meditating on these negative thoughts. They never leave you feeling good or better about yourself. So, if we was to look at negative thoughts under a microscope, this is what it would look like. But if we looked even closer, that's what it would look like. Just a little joke. So, negative thoughts. We create our thoughts, which causes an emotion. and it creates an experience. And we store it and we live it the next time we come across that person or that kind of situation. And so it's important that we understand that. It's a thought that creates an emotion and it creates an experience for us. And that's why environments often dictate behaviors, because we will remember the thought, which creates the emotion, and then we relive out that same kind of behavior when we get into that same kind of environment. And so it's really important that we understand what negative thoughts can do to us. So awareness gives you choices. If you are aware that a certain environment or a certain situation gives off these negative thoughts for you, you can then be aware of how you're going to respond and react to that, if you're going to go into that environment or not. And then you can choose whether you're going to be the leader or victim in every given situation. You see, life is built on choices. Every single one of us today are in the place where we are because of the choices, whether we chose to do or not to do something. Negative thoughts are thick and fast. And I'm sure we've all experienced it. When they come, they're thick and they're fast. And they are oppressive. And they leave you feeling overwhelmed about your situation. And that's why anxiety and fear and all these other things come about. Because that's what negative thoughts do. That's their role. Now, meditation before sleep actually clears your mind. So if you ever find that you've got things going on or there's a situation happening and you find you can't sleep, you're tossing and turning, having a little, even if it's a little 5-10 minutes meditation, actually helps to clear your mind and can have positive benefits on the type of sleep that you experience, as it puts you in a good headspace. So it's really important that we be aware of how negative thoughts can cripple us, and then how it can change the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, the way we sleep. So it's really important that we pay attention. And that was why at the beginning of this, I said, have intention in terms of what you want to achieve and think about it as we're going through these slides. So you can start to apply it and make notes about what you're going to do differently, what you're going to change to ensure that your resilience becomes strong. And so this is something that I talk about quite a lot, and I call it the RATs, which stands for the reoccurring afflicted thoughts. And the RATs are like those things that scurry about in the subconscious part of our mind, constantly eating out and wearing out our confidence and our self-esteem. And it's because these thoughts are going on in the subconscious part of our mind, we are not aware of it until a situation comes up that we have to actually address something or do something, and we realize the damage that these rats have caused. And so it's really important that we learn to use our CATs, our counteractive affirmative thoughts, to be able to catch those rats before they can cause damage. So in terms of these rats, they use the 3 L's to afflict us. And the first one is limits. They always want to limit your thinking. They always want to cause you to walk and think and act out of a limited belief system. They always want to highlight how and why you can't do it. You tried it before and it didn't work. Look at what people said about you in the past. They always want to focus on your limits. And it's important that we be aware when they start to whisper in the back of our mind and challenge them. The second L is lack. They always want to focus on what you can't do, what you don't have, the skills you don't have. And I think there's a beautiful poem where it talks about yet, and it's the power of yet. I don't have these skills yet. I can't do that yet. So whenever these rats are talking in the back of your mind, always add the yet to the back of it. Because it's okay if you can't do it yet, but you will be able to do it with work and determination. And the third one is labels. They always want to label you: failure, addict, weak, criminal. All these labels that they want to put on you to make you think that you're not able and you cannot do. But there's a saying that says, you're going to have an eternity to live inside of a box, i.e. a coffin. So while you're alive, don't limit yourself to the boxes that your rats want to put you in. And so it's important that we take positive steps to step out of our comfort zones, because our comfort zones feel good, but there's no change, no growth, and no development in our comfort zones. A comfort zone is a place to visit once in a while, but it's the worst place to live in. And so we have to always challenge these rats that want to keep us stuck in the same place. So the subconscious mind is the source of the rat's power. So let's look at this. So when we speak about the subconscious mind, we're talking about concerning a part of the mind which is not fully aware, but which influences the actions and the feelings that we have. So it's not at the front of your mind, but there's things going on in the back of your mind that's playing a major effect, having a major effect and impact on the decisions that you are currently making. In psychology, the subconscious is the part of the mind that is not currently in focal awareness. But examples of this are your habits, your memories, your beliefs, your fears, and your subjective maps of reality. And this is so important, understanding this, because our habits are the things we do without thinking about it. I'll give you an example. Whenever you're putting on your shoes, which shoe do you put on first? You don't even think about it, you just do it because it's habit now. If you're tying your shoelace, what piece side do you take first, the right or the left? All of these things you don't think about. If you've been driving for many years, when you first started, you had to really focus. The car had to be quiet. You had to really, get your bearings together to do the reverse turn and whatever it is you're doing. Whereas now you can do it while you're talking to someone. You don't even think about it. That's habits. Habits are fundamental, because if we had to think about everything we were doing, the brain would explode. Then we have memories. Memories are very important, but they also can carry baggage with them. Sometimes we are carrying the memories of something happened in the past, and we allow that to prevent us from moving forward. Beliefs is another key one. Now, if you look at what most research shows, most people believe, the experts believe, that most beliefs are formed and shaped by the age of 6 and 7. And the importance of that is that unless we sometimes go back and review those beliefs, we sometimes operate in and hold on to outdated beliefs that were developed when we were 6 or 7. And then we have fears. I spoke a lot about fears in the last webinar, and that fear often works out of our assumptions and based on what's going to happen in the future. And it's the stories that we tell ourselves that create the fear and make it become this big monster that paralyzes many people. And then we have subjective maps of reality. So we look at it from the vantage point of how we see things and not necessarily how they are. And so it's really important that we understand that. So our subconscious thoughts are often on autopilot, and they repeat and repeat and repeat. And this can create a garden of weeds without careful attention and the planting of positive thoughts. If we had a bad experience previously, when we're going into a similar situation, the autopilot will automatically say, it's going to go bad. They're not going to like me. It's not going to go well. I'm going to fail again. And so it's really important that we are able to catch those negative thoughts that will grow without any attention. And that's why we have to pay attention and operate in positive thoughts. So when we're looking at the iceberg of our awareness, our conscious part of our mind is only operating around 10% of the time. And that's your willpower, That's your long-term memory, your logical thinking, and your critical thinking. These are all the things that are happening in your conscious part of your mind. But the real work, 90% of the time, is happening in your subconscious part. And this is your beliefs that's often shaped from childhood, your emotions, your habits, your values, your protective reactions. So, in terms of if you feel anxious when talking in front of people, your protective reactions will be, let's avoid that. Don't do those things that's going to make me get into those kind of situations. And this is happening in the subconscious part of your mind. So you're often not even aware that you're doing that. Sometimes we can sabotage ourselves because it's a protective reaction so that we don't have to experience something. Then we also have a long-term memory that is a part of our subconscious mind, imagination and intuition. And so it's important that we become more aware of our subconscious mind and search what's going on for us. Why do I feel this way? Why do I respond that way? And this is why reflections and reflecting upon things is so powerful. So the question we have to all ask ourselves is, what is your programming? What is it that makes you tick? What are those belief systems that you're holding on to? And when you research and look over those, are they ones that you may want to update? Are they ones that you want to completely get rid of? And it's okay to make that change because change is a constant. And so the autopilot mindset, it makes you operate like a scratch CD. And if any of you have ever been playing a CD and it's scratched and it just goes zoop, 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 and it just keeps going and keeps going until you do something. Either you change to the next track or you take it out to clean it. And it's the same with us with our autopilot. Until we do something to change it, it will continuously do the same thing. And some people live out 10, 15, 20 years of their life doing the same thing, expecting something to change. And we know what that is often referred to as. It's the definition of insanity. And so we need to be aware of what is the autopilot that is going on for us in certain areas, and we need to clean the CD. So, the subconscious mind. So, in order to address this area, we have to use intellect to break that cycle. We have to start to think, plan, and look at things from an intellectual point of view. Because the subconscious is just on repeat. It's just doing the same thing. Even though the situation may have changed, it's still going to automatically think the same way. So it's about curiosity and not judgment. It's about looking at things with an open mind and not from an oppressive, it's going to go terrible point of view. So there's a model called SOS, and it's not Save Our Souls. It stands for stand back. This is the first thing that we need to do, because our subconscious mind wants to go into autopilot. And so we need to take a step back. We need to observe. There's a saying that says, do not let actions precede thought. And often people just jump into things. They just react rather than respond. And so when we take a step back, we can make a considered approach rather than a knee-jerk reaction. And after we stand back, we can observe. We can look at things objectively. We can challenge and say, well, actually, no, this is not that kind of situation. Yes, that happened before, but this is different. And then after we observe, we stare. And it's important for you to recognize that you are the driver of your thoughts. You can choose to plant those positive seeds, or you can choose to allow the weeds to grow. And so it's really important, because just like with a traffic light, sometimes we need to stop, stand back. When the red light is going on, when we're emotionally, attached to something, when we're not thinking clearly, we need to stop, gather ourselves, observe, and then steer in the right direction. And so it all starts with our thoughts. So you need to watch your thoughts, because they become your words. And we know the power of life and death is in the tongue. So you need to watch your words, because they become your actions. And your actions become your habits. And once a habit is formed, it takes a long time to break. And so you need to watch your habits, because your habits then become your character, because they become a part of your subconscious mind and you do it without thinking. And so we need to watch your character, because your character becomes your destiny. And so it's really important that it all starts in the mind. The mind is the battlefield, and all battles are won and lost in the mind first. And the hardest battles are the ones that we face internally. And it's important that we understand that. And that's why it's the weeds, it's the negative thoughts that are the things that destroy your resilience. Because if you're constantly thinking about yourself in a negative way, talking about yourself in a negative way, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, the garden of your mind. So these are some key questions that you all need to ask yourself. And so the first question is, what is the vision for your mind? And so in the chat, just write down, what is the vision for your mind? What's the vision for your mind today? How do you want to be? What do you want to think on? How do you want your mind to be? Because you need to have a vision for it. You need to know how you want it to be so that you can line up with it. Do you just wake up and think, oh, or do you consciously think, right, today I'm going to be focused on this. Today I'm not going to entertain these kind of thoughts. Today I'm not going to think about that person negatively. What is the vision for your mind? What is your goal for each day? So we've got a few responses here. Growth, absolutely. To be calm and focused, yeah. To get rid of the rats, definitely. Openness and curiosity. Yeah, and so it's important that we have these things in mind, and we're thinking about it and conscious about it. Because you're going to see when we look at some things later on, is that what you have in your mind plays an important role in terms of how you behave. And so the second thing is, what is your goal for each day? Do you have a goal for your day? Do you have a plan of what you want to do? Do you set out objectives for yourself to achieve? These things are really important, because what these things are doing is helping you to have intention. And when you have intention, you're focused on what you're doing. And when you're focused on what you're doing, you're less likely to let your mind just wander into the world of weeds and negative thinking. Then also, what do you really want? And what I mean by that is, what do you really want, and what will that give you? Because that is where your purpose comes from. What do you really want? I want to grow, I want to develop, I want to be this, I want to be that. And in terms of whatever you want, what will that give you? Will it give you peace, rest of mind? Will it make you feel strong about yourself? Because when you are aware of these things and you have them in mind, that's what will make you create a habit. When you have this vision in mind of what you want to achieve, and you set your goals of what you're going to do for each day to achieve that, and then you know what you really want, and you understand what it will give to you, you won't allow your mind to wander into these other things that's going to deter you away from that. Just like an athlete who wants to win the 100 meters and their friends telling them, come, let's go out and have pizza, they're not going to go along to that, because they have a vision in mind. They know what their goal is for each day. They know what they really want, and they know what it will give them. And although that pizza may taste nice for a moment, it's going to have a major impact on their long-term goals. And so they create a habit that will help them to get to their desired goal and destination. So it's really important that you look and see things from this perspective and have things in mind. So, the garden of your mind, it is vital that you always remember, one seed of thought can become a garden of peace, hope, and joy. And so, starting each day and ending each night with a positive thought has great rewards. And I don't know, people may do the start of it, but often people don't do the end of their night. Finish with a positive thought. Give yourself an affirmation. Say something about what you did well for that day. I used to do, when I was training, I was doing martial arts. And I remember my teacher said to me, if there's a move that you want to remember, or combination or technique, think about it before you go to bed. Because whatever you're thinking about, you will process it when you're dreaming. That's why when you've got a lot going on, do you notice you will have dreams in relation to that or around that topic? It's because whatever you go to sleep on, you're going to think about that because your mind is still active. And so have a positive thought before you go to bed because it creates the right environment for you to sleep more peacefully. I see we've got a couple of comments. Let me see here. Visualization, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And looking at your to-do list before you go to sleep, yeah, absolutely, good. And it's really important that we develop good habits. We want to develop good habits that will help us to grow and become more resilient. So let's look at some tools now. So this is a tool to help you to cultivate your mind. And it's Wateba. And it stands for something, Wateba. Is that what you think about, you bring about. And it's important that we understand that. What you think about, you bring about. If a situation comes up and you worry and stress about it, then you're going to create that kind of feeling and the behavior of what you're going to have. But if that same situation comes up and you think about it in a positive way, in a hopeful way, you're going to have positive thoughts about that situation. And what you may have thought in terms of how bad it may be may never happen, but you still would have experienced all the anxiety and fear around it because what you think about, you bring about. So I want you to think about this. What type of gardener are you? And if you do want to write in the chat, if you feel okay with doing that, then please do. What type of gardener are you? Are you a novice? Are you someone who doesn't plant? And that often the weeds are taking control of your mind? Or are you someone who's intermediate? Someone who plants goals and dreams periodically? Or are you an expert? Someone who plants with intention multiple times a day? And it's important that we understand which one we are, because that will determine how we operate, how we focus, how we do things. And it's important that we get to a stage where we grow and develop, and so that we are experts in gardening our minds. So, the reticular activating system is a fundamental part of our mind. And what it does do is it helps your brain to create connections and makes things easier to remember. So one of the most common occurrences of the RAS, as it's often referred to, is when you buy a new car. So once you buy that car, you start noticing that car more and more, things that you never even saw it before. When my wife bought her Nissan Juke, I realized in that week that there was 2 other Nissan Jukes on my road that I didn't notice before. But once my wife had the car, I became much more aware of it. And the RAS is such an important part of our brain because we can use it effectively to help us with our resilience. So, when we sow negative seeds, it's key because when you have a vision and a purpose and you're setting goals and you're reviewing them regularly, this also influences your RAS. And so we can actually shape our brain and sharpen it to focus on those things that are important to us because we are paying attention to it and we're constantly reminding ourselves of it and reviewing it. And that's why it's so important to have those 70,000 thoughts being predominantly positive so that our RAS will focus on them, because it has no distinction. If we're constantly focusing on the negative, your RAS will highlight those and you will see the fault in everything, including yourself. So, how does this all line up with you cultivating your mind and having a tool to help you with your resilience? Let's look at it. So I want you to think of something that you want to develop, and I want you to write down a positive thought about your objective. So you can do it in the chat if you want, or just write it down on your paper, something that you can keep. An example for me was, I'm going to smash this resilience workshop. That was something that I was saying to myself, reminding myself, talking about when I was putting it together, reminding myself. Now, we all have one of these, and often we may just use it excessively to go on social media, to do different types of things, but this very tool can be used in a very productive way to help your resilience. And it's in 3 simple things. So, whatever you wrote down in terms of that thing that you want to change or develop, I want you to take a picture and put it as your screensaver. You don't have to do it right now, but I want you to take a picture and put it as your screensaver. Why do I want you to do that? Because studies have shown that the average person unlocks their phone 110 times a day. The average person. There's people do it more than that, but the average person. And why is that important, and why does that help us? Well, this is the perfect tool for programming your RAS to focus and think on that thing that you want to achieve. And the more that it's pumped into your brain and you think about it and it's in mind, your RAS will constantly pick up things that are in line with that. And I tell you, because it absolutely works for me. When I'm putting together a training package, I find resources from everywhere. Sometimes I think, how did I even find this? Because your RAS is working to identify those things in line with what you're constantly thinking of. It's a powerful tool that you can use. Another important thing is attitude. Attitude makes a big difference. So this is Bear Grylls. For those of you who don't know, Bear Grylls is a great man. He goes to remote places and he shows people how to survive in really dangerous, difficult environments and terrains and stuff like that. But there was a time where he broke his back after falling 16,000 feet due to a torn parachute. Doctors who've been trained for many years, who are experts in their field, said he wouldn't be able to walk again. 2 years later, he climbed Mount Everest, the tallest mountain that can ever be climbed by a human being. How did this happen? Was it a miracle? Or is there something that he knew that we can take from what he did to apply in our own lives? Well, what he did was he had attitude. And attitude is created by what you believe to be true in your mind. And it's important that we understand that. There has been studies that have been done. I remember when I was working in the prisons, I used to be the lead facilitator for a crack awareness program. And it was a 6-week rolling program, and it was looking at all these different things to raise awareness and understanding around crack and cocaine. But one of the things I used to talk about was there was a blind study that was done. And what they did, it was to look at if the phenomenon of crack babies was true, as in if when a mother has a child in her stomach and she uses crack, does the child come out with withdrawals, like what happens with heroin and alcohol? And in the study, what they did is they had 2 different groups. And what they did is they told one side of the people who was observing, that those children were the ones where the parents had been using crack, and the other side, it wasn't. But they told them a lie. So the side that were looking at the ones who they believed had been using crack were the ones who hadn't. So they actually told them the opposite. And what was interesting was all of those who believed that this was the children whose parents had been using crack while it was in the stomach saw signs of withdrawal. They saw what they wanted to see because it was what was in their mind from the beginning. And so this is why your mind is so powerful and important, because attitude is created by what you believe to be true in your mind. So you fought it again and again, and it manifested, and that's what forms your behavior. Remember, our subconscious mind is also playing a role here because it's your beliefs, your behaviors, it's what you think about yourself. But Bear Grylls did something different. He planted positive seeds every day and ended up with a beautiful garden. And with that garden, it ended with him being able to climb Mount Everest. So the question we have to all ask ourselves is, what have you allowed other people to keep you from by their negative words? What things have people said about you and to you and over you to keep you from going forward and doing things that you have all the ability to do if you have an attitude to believe that you can do it? And this is why it's so important that we reflect, that we are able to look over things and being able to throw away the lies and the trash that people say over us that can keep us even from childhood. I worked with so many people who were in their 30s and 40s and 50s and were still holding on to what a teacher said to them when they were young and said that you will never amount to anything. It was still holding them bondage 20 and 30 and 40 years later. And we're going to look at why a bit later, why that happens. But it's important that we be mindful of what you think about from today and what you want to leave behind. Because you have the power. You are the CEO of your well-being, and you are the director of your life. A positive attitude causes a chain reaction of positive thoughts, events, and outcomes. It is the catalyst that strikes and sparks extraordinary results. Anyone who has been successful in any field, in any area, in anything they've done, they got there by thinking positive thoughts. They didn't get there by saying, I'm rubbish, I'm terrible, I'm never going to make this happen. And so it's important, if you want to get to your desired goal and destination, if you want to do the great things that you believe that you can do, it starts by you having positive thoughts and a positive attitude about what you can achieve. And when you have a positive attitude, it makes you see everything differently. So when you have a positive mind, fail means to you is just first attempt in learning. End is just effort never dies. No just means next opportunity. It's like water for duck's back. You're so ready and amped to do what you're going to do that these things will not stop you. They can only delay you. And the mind is like water. When it is turbulent, it's difficult to see. But when it's calm, everything becomes clear. And it's important that we have clear, watered minds so that we can see and understand what's going on. And so things don't just happen to us, but we are aware of what's happening and what's going on inside. So the question we must ask ourselves is, when situations come up, do we bend or do we break? And it may be for some we do bend and for some we do break. For the ones that we break, it's about looking about what's going on for us, what's going on in our mind, what's the attitude we're holding, what things have people said in the past that makes us look at it that way so that we can change the narrative. Because it is about changing the narrative. And so this leads us on to mind traps. And I would like, as we're talking about this, just to write down, what is a mind trap that either affects you now or has affected you in the past? Is it jumping to conclusions? Is it 2 and 2 means 25 to you? You know, is it the emotional reasoning that always, you know, we're thinking about what someone may feel, what someone may think when you're making your decisions? So you never make decisions based on what's best for you. It's based on what's best for everyone else. Is it personalization? You know, what is it that's going on there? What is it that we're thinking about? What is it that's going on? So yeah, it's the assumption, someone said. It's, you know, the cycle, you know, between two. Yeah, absolutely. It's the all or nothing. Is it either it was great or it was terrible? You may be doing something and you made one mistake in that speech, and so you say it's terrible, everyone's going to look at me, I'm going to look stupid. So it's about what are the mind traps that we're operating out of? And it's important to catch ourselves when we're operating out of them. Because again, it's down to you. It's down to the choices that you choose to take. It's how you choose to deal with situations. So someone's put worrying about people judging me by my looks and make untrue conclusions. Absolutely. You know, and it's interesting because I many years ago, I came to a conclusion which changed my life. And what I realized was that regardless of what I do and say, there's always going to be a critic. There's always going to be someone that don't like me. So then I made a choice to say, I'm going to do what is right by my values and morals. And anyone who is okay with that is someone that's meant to be in my life. And it's really important that we don't allow people to dictate to us how we live. As long as what you're doing ain't harming someone and ain't causing no one no harm, then you're okay. You can go to sleep each night feeling good about yourself. And just know that sometimes people, you could be doing a good thing and someone don't like it. So it's important to not allow how other people see you to be how you see yourself. Someone else has also put about jumping to conclusions, you know, and personalization. So yeah, so it's really important that we are aware of these traps because they trip us up. And the more that we become aware of it, we can then start to look at and address why and what's going on there. And so it's really important that we take those active steps to make sure that our mind is thinking in the right way, because mind traps lead us into negative thinking and allow for our inner critic to get its foot, you know, in our heads. So, key traits in resilient people. Resilient people stop stopping themselves. And what they do is they see things for what they are. A small problem is a small problem and a mountain is a mountain. They don't see every small problem as a mountain and cause unnecessary stress to go on in their minds and in their bodies. They focus on the things that they can change and accept the things that they can't. And it's really important that we learn to do this, because if you don't learn to accept something that you can't change, then you're going to be in constant turmoil. And so it's recognizing this is something out of my control, but I can do what I can to keep myself safe, i.e. with COVID-19. But what we also resilient people do is they focus on the things that they can change and they put their energies in those areas, and that enables them to feel good and better because they've done something. They don't carry resentment and they don't hold on to unforgiveness and bitterness. Bitterness is like poison. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So resilient people don't hold on to things with bitterness and unforgiveness because it only eats away at you. And they don't ruminate with things like if only and what if and should have and could have and all these other things that drain your energy and strength and only pushes up your cortisol levels. So it's really important that we take control of our mind and ownership of our thoughts so that we can live a much more healthier life. So, stress and cortisol. So, stress, as we spoke about a bit earlier, is something that in small amounts is actually good. It helps us to work better and to get objectives completed. Cortisol also is another thing that the body needs to have, and in small amounts when it's released, it's not a problem. Cortisol is one of the hormones that's released as a result of stress, along with adrenaline that creates our fight or flight. But when we have too much stress and we have too much cortisol released, it can be quite damaging, because cortisol does a few things, like it suppresses our immune system. And if you constantly have your immune system suppressed, that's where you're more vulnerable for illnesses, sicknesses, and colds. But what it also does is it stops serotonin from functioning. And serotonin is key for doing many things, but three in particular that you need to remember is it regulates mood, temperature, and sleep. And so your mood's going to be affected, your sleep's going to be affected, and your temperature is going to be affected when you have too much cortisol being released in your body. So high levels of cortisol can wear down the brain's ability to function properly, and stress can kill the brain cells and even reduce the size of your brain. Chronic stress has a shrinking effect on the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for memory and learning. So from a resilience point of view, this is quite damaging, because if you're not remembering things and you're forgetting things, that's going to stress you out. If you're trying to do things and you're trying to learn things and you just can't seem to get it, that's not going to work well for you. If it's reducing the size of your brain, that's never a good thing. And if it's wearing down the ability of your brain to function properly, that's going to create a whole load of problems. And so it's really important that we take ownership of our thinking, because your brain and your health is dependent upon it. And cortisol in high levels creates a carnage in all types of ways in our body, as we can see from this picture. It raises our anxiety levels. In women, it can cause them to have more facial hair. With men, it does the opposite. It causes them to have hair loss and receding hair. It can create insomnia, low levels of tolerance to stress. It can create allergies to cause outbursts. It makes you put on weight. It does a whole range of things. So it's really important that we take care of ourselves and we don't allow ourselves to get in these stressful ways and situations by the thoughts that we are thinking. So one of the ways that we can do that is to have gratitude. Gratitude keeps you healthy. Resilient people tune into what's good in their world. So, as homework, I want you to make a detailed list of all the things that you can have gratitude for in your life today. But in the chat, I just want you to list one or two things that you have gratitude for in your life at the moment. Okay, yeah, health, family, absolutely. Another family, yep, fantastic relationships, beautiful people, yep, family, friends, current health, yep, a roof over my head, a job, absolutely. So much people are losing their jobs at this time. To have a job is a great blessing. And so it's important that we remember these things. You know, two beautiful children, absolutely. So it's important that we do remember these things when we're going through life, because often what happens is, unfortunately, we could have 7 good things happening and we experience one negative thing, and that one negative thing overrides all of those positives that we have in our life. And when we operate out of a mindset and an attitude of gratitude, it helps us. It allows life to be more meaningful. Yep, we've also got mission and purpose. Absolutely. All of these things is so important. It's so important that we focus on the positive rather than the negative. So let the sand of your negative thinking be washed away by the tide of your positive thoughts. And that's what we should be doing every day. Wake up with that intention and leave and go to bed with that intention, that the sand of your negative thinking is going to be washed away by the tide of your positive thoughts. And the reason why that is so important is because where the mind goes, the energy flows. And all of us can imagine a time when we were just ruminating and worried and fearful about something. You had no strength, you had no energy. But in the same time, when you was in that zone and you were flowing and you was doing something that you loved and you was passionate about, the energy flows. So self-care is a divine responsibility. It's a divine responsibility that we all have to take care of. And to help us to do it, we have the 6 best doctors. These are the real doctors that you should have in your life. It's only when things go wrong that we go to the sick doctors to see how we can get ourselves better. But these are the best doctors that we can have in our life. Fresh air does wonders. I remember every day when I used to come out of the prison, when I was working in a prison, and the air just felt and was so beautiful because you've been in this environment where there's a lack of air and it's dirty and there's and all this stuff going on. When you came out, it was just like life. Fresh air is so important. Then we have exercise. You know, exercise, and when I say exercise, I don't just mean going to the gym, but just being active, whether you're gardening, whether you're going for a walk, whether you're going for a jog, whether you're dancing, whatever it is, but something that's keeping you active. Then we have water. Water is fundamental for sustaining us and maintaining us. And then we have rest. You know, without sleep for rest, I'm going to be talking about sleep in a minute, so I won't touch too much on that now. And then we have healthy food. You know, what you eat, you know, there's the saying that says you are what you eat. Every 30 days, 30 to 35 days, our skin is replaced with the food that we have eaten. So having the right food in your body is paramount for your health and your well-being. And then we have the sun. The sun is also so important to get that vitamin D, to make us feel awake, to make us feel strengthened. You know, people change so much when the sun is out. And especially for people who suffer with SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder, it can have a major impact on their well-being and how their mood and how they feel. And so what they say is for people who suffer with SAD is that to get a lava lamp, because what it does is it mimics the kind of lighting from how the sun will be, and it helps them to feel better. And so these 6 doctors are the ones that we should invest in regularly. But I want to touch on 2 areas in particular. And the first is the science of sleep. Sleeping is so important. People always talk about the importance of food and water, and that, you know, without a certain amount of that we can die, but sleep is so important as well. And so we have 4 different stages that we go through. We have the first stage, which is the interim between consciousness and sleep. Then we have stage 2, which is the breathing and the heart rate begins to slow down. Then we have stage 3, which is the body begins to heal itself. Very important. Then we have stage 4, which is body temperature and blood pressure lowers down. And then we have REM, which is the increase of eye movement, heart rate, breathing. And what happens is we go through that cycle a few times each night if we've had a good night's sleep. Now, cancer cells multiply faster the more sleep deprived that an individual is. So in terms of being able to fight off even things like cancer, if you do not get enough sleep, those cells multiply much faster. Sleep is a vital part of recovery because of melatonin. Melatonin is like your internal DIY system. So when you go to sleep, its role is to kind of clean up the body and to help with that healing processes. So that's why it's important that we get enough sleep, and also why you don't eat too close to when you're going to sleep. Because before melatonin can clean up the body, if there is a whole load of food in your body, it has to clear up that first. But it still has the same limited amount of time to do all its other tasks. So sleep is the prescription for rejuvenating your mind and your body, as well as improving your sex life. People who are not getting enough sleep are just going to be fatigued and not have the strength and even the desire to want to do things like that. If you don't sleep right, you are more likely to put on weight. Studies have shown a direct connection between an increase in sleep deprivation and obesity. And the reason for that is because your brain craves carbohydrates to increase serotonin, which we know helps to regulate mood, temperature, and sleep, which is why people go after sugary foods when they feel tired in an intent to curb the feeling of fatigue. And so it's really important that we are getting that right sleep so that we eat right, so that our body can function right. And there is also a direct relationship between a lack of sleep and your resilience levels. Your resilience levels go down with the less amount of sleep that you have. And the average sleep cycle is 90 minutes. And the average person has 5 cycles, which equals about 450 minutes or 7.5 hours sleep. So that's why when people drink alcohol before they go to bed, or they've drank a lot of alcohol and it hasn't all come out of their body, because it takes 1 hour for 1 unit of alcohol to be processed in your liver. If people have alcohol still in their system when they go to sleep, when you go to sleep, your system bypasses stage 1, 2, and 3 and goes straight into REM. And the problem is, without you going through the proper process of stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and then REM, you wake up feeling tired and drained, and your body hasn't been able to go through the healing process that is needed. So it's really important that we look after ourselves in terms of what we're putting in our body and how we're treating our body. Now, sunlight reduces sleepiness by turning off the melatonin facet in your head. When I first heard about this, because I heard a doctor talking about it, so I tested it out. One day when I woke up and I was groggy and I was tired, and I went outside and I was standing out in the sun for about 5 to 10 minutes, it does work. It literally invigorates you, it rejuvenates you. It's such an amazing thing. The sun does so many great things for us that we are not aware of. So when you're feeling tired and sleepy, get up 10 minutes earlier and get out into the sun, and I guarantee you it will rejuvenate you because of what it does to your serotonin. Now, water, I want to speak to you about. And now we know water, because we are made up of water, every part of our body needs water to help it to function properly. But I was looking at some research also of looking at the benefits of water externally. So not just about the benefits of it when we drink it, but what also water does to us when it's around us externally. And the first thing is that it makes you calmer and more creative. And this is why people spend their vacations on the beach and by the lake, why we like to exercise in things like surfing and scuba diving and sailing and swimming, and refreshing themselves with long showers and soothing baths, because water actually does great things for us even in the outside. It helps us to feel calmer and it helps us to be more creative. The second thing that the studies showed is that water can increase your innovation and insight. So our brains are hardwired to react positively to water, and being near it can calm and connect us and increases innovation and insight. Even it can heal what is broken. And that's why when a child is born, if the child is born in a water birth, as soon as the child comes out of the womb, what does it do? It starts swimming. Because from the beginning, our nature is to engage in water. The child is in a sack of water all the time while it's in labor, in the mum's womb before it goes into labor. So water is a fundamental part of us. So when we're around it, it has positive benefits on us. And the third thing is that water unlocks your brain's default mode network. And this network is associated with things like daydreaming, imagination, consolidation of memories, insight, and introspection. So it's so important, the benefits of water and what it can do to us, even when you go in the shower. because it is triggering these things in our brain that can help us to. That's why sometimes in the shower, have you ever noticed that you start to get ideas, or you're thinking about things, or things just become a bit clearer, or you remember something that you forgot? Because it's water that's doing it. It's the science of water. We are generally connected and like to be connected to water. And it's only when someone has a bad experience or near drowning that then they have a negative effect of water. But from birth, we generally like to be near water and in water. So, mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the key tools that we can do to help our resilience. So, mindfulness means maintaining a moment by moment awareness of our thoughts and our feelings, and our body sensations and surrounding environment through a gentle and nurturing lens. So it's not looking at ourselves in a judgmental way, but it's looking at things moment by moment and accepting how things are. So mindfulness is about being present in the moment, in mind and in body. Often what happens with us is we're either dwelling on the past that we cannot change, or we're being consumed with worry by what may happen in the future that may never even take place. And so what happens a lot of the time is there is a disconnect, because our body may be feeling a certain way, but our mind is in a completely different place. Mindfulness helps to connect us and bring us back into one complete being. And so when we operate out of mindfulness, it creates self-awareness. And that self-awareness helps us to have emotional balance in terms of how we're feeling and what's going on for us. And out of that social emotional balance, it creates social awareness in terms of how we will be with other people, in terms of if someone does or triggers something in us that makes us not feel that comfortable, that we are aware of that and we can make conscious decisions if we want to be around that person or if we want to talk to that person. And out of that social awareness, it creates relationship management. And so it's really important that we do have mindfulness and we work on developing our mindfulness. And so when we're talking about mindfulness, there's two different types of mindful that we can have. On the left-hand side, this picture is of someone, a man taking his dog for a walk. And on the left-hand side, it shows the man who is mindful. He is thinking about all these problems, all of his issues, the children, work, the deadlines, the bills that need to be paid, COVID-19, and every other thing. And it's too much. It creates brain fog. It overburdens and overpowers that individual, and the negative thought starts to flood in. But the dog, on the other hand, is mindful. For the dog, its only interest is getting into the park and peeing on those trees. It's not thinking about the puppies, it's not thinking about anything else. It is only thinking about the trees. And that is how we need to be in terms of being mindful. We cannot address every situation at the same time, but we can address one situation at a time with excellence. And so what is important for us to do is to be able to take a step back and say, right, what is going on for me right now in this moment? And then how am I going to address that? And so mindfulness meditation has been proven through research that it adds more gray matter to the part of your brain, your frontal lobe, that makes decisions, which can help you to stop procrastinating. So mindfulness actually, if you struggle with procrastinating and you start to engage in mindfulness on a regular basis, you will start to see that dissipate. You will start to see that just fade away. Because what you're doing when you're operating out of mindfulness, it's triggering certain parts of your brain that creates better decision making. And so you are able to address those situations and those circumstances that normally hold you back. And so there are three core principles when we think about mindfulness. So it's awareness. And so in order for you to understand, you have to be aware first. You have to know what's going on in yourself. And then we have being present in the moment, which is about paying attention. And then after paying attention, it's about an acceptance for what you have noticed when you paid attention. And then it's about what you're going to do with that once you have accepted it, which then creates more awareness. And it's as we constantly go through that, each day, with each thought, with every situation and circumstance, it helps you to be able to filter out those negative thoughts and helps you to operate in a more positive way. But don't just take my word for it. Let me show you the research and studies from a research that was done by Search Inside Yourself, which is a global leadership institute program. And this was data from 1,500 participants who took part in a 2-day mindfulness workshop. And this is the results. 89% improved their ability to reduce stress. 91% enhanced their clarity of mind. 79% increased their energy levels. 91% improved their ability to remain calm. 73% shifted their leadership paradigm, and 85% increased their ability to connect with others. And what they did was they did a test at the beginning, and they did this initial test 2 weeks later, and then a month later. These results were seen after they operated this within a month. And so the power and the benefits of mindfulness, of what it can do for you, if you want a more clarity of mind, if you want to reduce your stress levels, if you want more energy levels, if you want to have more of a leadership edge to you, if you want to remain calm in situations, and you want to be able to connect with others better, I encourage you to practice mindfulness. So, the stress bucket. This is something that we have to be aware of about ourselves. So we all have a stress bucket, okay? And what happens is that stress bucket will fill with different types of situations that come up. Put down 1 or 2 things that enters into your stress bucket that can have an impact on you. What is it? Is it moving home? Is it arguments with people? Is it, speaking in public? What is it that, enhances your stress bucket? What's 1 or 2 things that people have? Put it in the chat box. Okay, so we have office politics. Yeah, definitely. Workload. Yeah. Okay, my dad has Alzheimer's. Okay, yeah. My father-in-law has Alzheimer's as well. Yeah. Okay, ex-partners, ex-husband. Yeah. So there's all these different things that can come up that can add to our stress bucket. And then what happens is, if the bucket overflows because we have too much stuff going on, then we start to snap. The way we start to react in a negative way, we get short with people. And what that does is it helps us to identify the vulnerability of the size of our bucket. If you're doing that regularly and too often, then it means that the size of your bucket is a small size, and that we want to help to develop and expand that so that we're not making those mistakes so much. And so, yeah, that vulnerability is something that we then can recognize and realize what are the tools that we can do to help us to reduce those stress levels. And that's where the tap comes into play. The tap is your coping mechanism. So if you have a good coping mechanism, that means that your tap is working to let the stress out. If you have a bad coping mechanism, it's like that tap being stuck, and it's not allowing the water to be filled and to come out of that bucket. And so it's like, what is the things that you do to help you when you're feeling stressed? Is it reading? Is it separating yourself? Is it meditation? Is it mindfulness? Is it prayer? Is it exercise? It's important for you to know. And if you don't know and you don't have it at the moment, then it's for you to start to think about, what can you start to apply to help you so that you can reduce your stress levels. And this is where the traffic light system comes in. Because once you can start to identify the problem and make an analysis of how you're going to deal with that problem, then you can operate out of a solution-focused attitude and mindset. And that is the equivalent of turning the tap to reduce that stress so that the cup or the bucket, is not overflowing. And so it's really important for us to think about that and identify, what are your positive coping strategies? because eating a tub of ice cream is not a positive coping strategy. So it's really important that we identify what are the things that we can do to help ourselves to boost our resilience. Another thing that we have to be mindful of is the things that are outside of your control. Other people's actions and other people's words and what other people want to do and their behaviors are outside of your control. And so for you to worry about those things, it means that you will be captive for the rest of your life. And so what is important for us to do is to focus on the things that you can control. Your words, your actions, your ideas, your behaviors, and how you operate in life. And as I was saying earlier, what I recognize for myself is that I'm going to be the enemy in someone's mind. There's someone who's not going to like what I do. There's someone who's going to say the way that I done this trading was completely wrong. There's someone who's going to say that I'm too big, I'm too small, I'm too this. That's their business. It's not my business. That's for them to think about. But how I think about myself is going to be good thoughts. And that's going to feed the garden that I want to nurture in my mind. And all of us have that choice about what we're going to choose to focus on. So, you need to fight for your peace. All of us need to fight for our peace. And it's the fight of your life, because there's many people and there's many situations and there's many circumstances that could take your peace if you allow it to. So it's to recognize that you're in a fight. And it's like that first pictures that were shown at the beginning of the wolf with the one arrow. And that was used to be able to put it down. Whereas now it can have 10 and still be walking. You grow through the struggle. You get stronger through the struggle. Your resilience is becoming better through every situation and circumstance that tries you. Even though in the moment you don't like it, it's actually working out for your good. So when you're going through things, when you're trying something new, try again and again and again and again until the A is moved and you start to gain. But don't give up. Failure does not mean final. Keep pressing on until you achieve your goal. And when people arrive in your home or in your space at work and they want to come with these low vibrations of complaining, just tell them, we don't do that here. That's not what I want. It's okay if you want to talk about, but can you just keep that over there? It's okay for you to do that because you're protecting your own resilience. You're protecting your own mind from entering into that negative cycle. So take ownership of your own well-being. And if someone is doing something that's violating that, make sure you are assertive to make sure you keep yourself safe. So, ways to manage stress. We have a whole different ways of things that we can do to manage stress. I'll just touch on a couple, but you will have all of this information in your pack, which I'll give you afterwards. But just things like making sure that you have some me time is so important. Sometimes we can get caught on the rat race and we're always doing and we never have no time to relax, to recuperate. And that's where burnout comes from. It's also to being able to accept the things that you cannot change. It's so important. Keeping a stress diary is another thing, so that you can begin to identify what are the stresses in your life. Because once you can see the patterns and you can connect the dots, you can then create an action plan to avoid it happening. Don't overcommit yourself. It only leads to stress. Don't say yes to things without thinking it through. Don't say yes to things just because you want to please someone. Say yes to things that you can do and that will not harm or hurt you. And make a to-do list. Write things down. Because what that does is it helps you to remember the things that you need to do so that you don't commit to something where you've forgotten about other stuff you need to do, which then creates more stress. So there's lots of different things that we can do. Avoid unhealthy coping habits like alcohol when you're feeling stressed. It's really important that we look at ways to manage our stress in a productive way rather than just operating out of default position when something goes wrong. And our emotions are so important. So as Bruce Lee said, learn to discipline your emotions, because if you don't, your enemies will use them against you. And do you know who your greatest enemy can be at times? It's yourself. No one has caused you to make more mistakes than you. No one has caused you to operate out of negative behaviors more than you. So we have to be careful of our emotions, because our emotions will work with your self-sabotage and your inner critic and your inner monkey and your negative weed thoughts to create you to react rather than respond. And so, if we don't control our emotions, we'll be consumed by them. And it's fear, it's shame, it's guilt, it's envy, it's all of these different things. But there is one emotion that's a superpower that we should all learn to develop, and that is to be calm. And for me, calm stands for continually, assertively, living mindfully. So we continue assertively whenever a situation comes up, we're able to address it in an assertive manner, valuing the other person and their opinion, but also being able to assertively say things from our perspective. And that enables us to feel that we've been vindicated ourselves and that we are able to feel better about ourselves. And then by doing that, we are able to live mindfully in the moment. Because when we don't address situations and we hold on to things, then we are suppressing our emotions and we can't live in the moment. And so what happens is people like that then become like what we call a puddle. They all surface and no substance. And so we want to be calm, continuing assertively, living mindfully. So, few things that we need to understand about emotions. Positive emotions can make you more resilient and more happy. So the more positive emotions you have, it actually creates a chemical reaction that helps you to be more resilient. Optimism will strengthen your immune system against invasions um, of foreign viruses and bacteria. So when we are optimistic and we have optimism, you know, we're looking at things from a point of view of hope, of what can happen and the good things, it actually strengthens your immune system. So when people say, "No, you're too optimistic," tell them, "Well, actually, yeah, I am, and that's why I've got a good immune system, and that's why I'm healthy." People who are pessimists have a poor immune system. And if they have a poor immune system, it's going to affect their health and their resilience. Having positive thoughts increase your brain's ability to make better decisions. So it's really important that you operate out of a positive mindset. So your decision makings will be better. And with each decision making that's better, it actually increases your self-esteem because you made a good choice. If you fall asleep while overthinking, then your brain will stay active even during your sleep and you'll wake up feeling tired. So it's really important that we, like I was saying before, if you've got a lot of things going on in your head, have a little bit of meditation. Think a positive thought about yourself before you go to sleep. 70% of people pretend to be okay because they don't want to annoy others with their problems. Imagine that, 70% of people. So they're feeling things, they're going through things, but they don't talk about it and they pretend everything is okay. They wear a mask because they don't want to annoy other people. Feeling ignored causes the same chemical effect as an injury. So if you are around people that are ignoring you, who don't make you feel good, it's in your best interest to separate from them, because every time it's the equivalent of them injuring you. It's causing an injury to you. The same amount of chemical effect that that person ignoring you is causing. Writing negative thoughts down and tossing the paper away or throwing it in the trash improves your mood. So if you're going through a whole load of negative thinking and you've got this rumination going on, a key thing you can do is just start to write them down, because it's a cathartic process. And in doing so, you're actually clearing the brain of all of those things. It actually improves your mood. Now, another important part of the brain that many people don't realize is the anterior cingulate cortex. And this is the part of the brain that is responsible for helping us to understand and process pain. Now, the same part of the brain that processes physical pain also processes emotional pain in exactly the same way. So a broken foot is regulated and processed in this part of the brain the same way that a broken heart is. It makes no distinction. And this is why words have the power of life and death, because many people hold greater scars internally from the words that people have said than the scars that someone may have had from someone who threw a stone at them. And so it's important for you, and when we're looking at the subconscious part of our mind, which forms the behaviors and the memories and the subjective parts of our reality, can often be linked to things that people have said to us previously. Sometimes the reason why we hold negative thoughts about ourselves is because we are locked in the frame of what someone had previously said. Today is the day to free yourselves. And so it's important that we understand the power of words, especially when you say it to yourself. When you make a mistake, don't say, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb, because you are reinforcing certain things in your brain. This part of your brain will process it. Whatever you say is taken to be the truth. That's why the power of affirmations is so important. Because if you're continuously to give yourself affirmations, your brain is going to take it on board. Your RAS is going to take it on board. So finally, I want us to look at the 5 ways to well-being. So in terms of the 5 ways to well-being, it's these 5 areas. So to connect, to be active, to take notice, to keep learning, and to give. And these 5 simple things that we can do was generated by research from the New Economics Foundation. And it showed that by operating out of these 5 areas in our daily life, whether it be at work or at home, it helps to boost resilience, to boost your well-being, and lowers the risk of people developing mental health problems. And these simple things are known internationally as the 5 ways to well-being. So let's look at these. So in terms of being active, can you just write in the chat like 1 or 2 things that you do to be active? What do you do? What's some of the stuff that you do to be active? Okay, so we said got riding, we've got yoga, walks, hiking, a brisk walk, exercise, housework, that's a good one, jogging. Yep, so we've got all these different things that we can do to boost, to be active, sorry. And so here's some examples. I mean, some of the stuff is what people said, you know, taking the stairs instead of taking the lift, you know, just doing some stretching. Even if you're working, you know, you do some little stretches while you're working, all these little things that we can do to help us to be more active. And being physically active every day is great for your body and your mind. One of the things when I was doing my research looking at this is that exercise and being active actually increases your gray matter. Gray matter is found all over your body, but it's found a lot in your brain. To put this in context, many things like Alzheimer's, bipolar, and even psychotic episodes occur in people who have low amounts of gray matter. So by exercising, you can actually do a lot to help your brain and your body to fight off certain things that may come up later on in life. So in terms of connect, what are some of the things that we do to connect? Put some of the things in the chat. What do you do to connect? How do you connect? Who do you connect with? Zoom, yeah, absolutely. Connecting right now. Video calls, yep. Poetry, yep. Writing poetry, that's good. And so I think, yep, phone calls, Zoom, WhatsApp, visit family. Yeah, and I think especially in this time, with all that's going on with self-isolation, that it's really important that we do find different ways to connect. Because before we could just go out and socialize with people. But for example, there's things like what we can do is we can't maybe go out for lunch, but we can have a virtual lunch. You know, you can do that over Zoom and you may be in one place and that person may be in one place, but you can still have that meeting via Zoom or via something else. You know, and it's different ways that we can connect with one another. And it's important that we be aware of the different things that we can do to support ourselves during this time. So strong relationships with others are an essential part of building resilience and boosting your well-being, because the extreme opposite of connection is isolation, and isolation is riddled with a whole load of other things like anxiety and depression and so many other problems that come up when we are isolated. So what about taking notice? What are some of the stuff we're doing to take notice? What do you do? Write in the chat. What's some of the things you do to take notice? Yep, yep. So video calls on Zoom, yeah, and taking notice of things that's being said. Noticing my feelings, that's a really important one, definitely. Observing smells and stuff, yeah, it's a really important one. There's a so we've got taste as well. So there is a good mindfulness exercise where you can look at to ground yourself is looking at you focus on what you can smell, what you can taste, what you can feel, and what you can hear. It's a good way to kind of help you to kind of get back into your senses and what's going on for you. Yep. So we also got mindfulness, writing bedtime thoughts down. That's good. Yep. Breathing exercises. Yeah. All of these things are great ways in terms of helping us to be mindful. And so the more that we do this, the more that we're taking notice of our feelings, our emotions, what works for us, what we like, what we don't like. All of these things are really important to help us to be rounded, to help us to be more resilient. So paying more attention in the present moment to thoughts and feelings and the world around us can boost your well-being. So pay attention. Then we have keep learning. What's something that you would like to learn or something that you currently are learning? What's something that you're doing? Ezra. Yeah, definitely. You're learning. Good. You're learning today from this workshop. Absolutely. What about others? Learning now? Yep, absolutely. And that's the good thing. Training, workshops, webinars, these are all different ways that we can learn. E-learning, you know, learning on the job, trying something new, looking over something, reading a book, watching a TED talk. All of these things are things that we can do to help us to learn. And it's really important. So, and we also had someone say YouTube videos. Absolutely. So these things are things that we can do, all these things that are written down there. But being curious and seeking out new experiences positively stimulates the brain. So neuroplasticity, which is something that I spoke about in detail in my last webinar. If you haven't watched the last one on mental resilience, do go and watch it. But I spoke about neuroplasticity in detail. And what that basically is it's the brain's ability to reshape and reform itself based on what you experience, what you think about, and what you do. And so the more things that you learn, the more things that you're doing, the more that you're allowing your brain to grow, it's fundamentally reshaping your brain, reshaping and adding more neurons to your brain. For example, if anyone can speak more than one language, when you do that, you actually change the circuitry of your brain. Your brain actually changes for the better in various different ways. So there's things that we can do when we are learning new things that are actually empowering us and fueling our resilience. And the last one is give. And whenever I talk about this area of give and I ask people, people always say like I give and I help and I give to charity or I volunteer and I do all these things. But no one never says about giving to themselves. And I think it's really important that we do give to ourselves, have time for yourself, make sure you're investing time in you. Because as the saying says, you cannot pour from an empty jug. And so if you're not pouring into yourself first, you can't pour into your children, your clients, your colleagues, your family, and everyone else. And so just like if you're on a plane and it goes wrong and the oxygen mask comes down, they always tell you to put it in yourself, on yourself first, so that you can then support everyone else who you need to support. So remember, in all your giving, give to yourself as well. Giving makes us feel good, and carrying out acts of kindness, whether they're small or large, can increase happiness, life satisfaction, and a general sense of well-being. And that's why when you give to yourself, i.e. go on holiday, i.e. go for a massage, i.e. go for a sauna, you feel good. Because even when giving to yourself, it feels good. So it's really important that you operate out of these 5 ways of well-being daily in your life to help boost your resilience, boost your well-being, and lower your chances of mental health problems. So a few final bits. It's important to remember discipline creates future miracles. With the stuff that you would have learned today and what you're going to take away for today, and that you're going to take away and operate with intention, the more disciplined you are, the more regularly you do it, the more fervency you do it with, is how your miracle will manifest and how soon it will manifest. But 6 things that we have to be aware of that we need to give up. Excuses. Excuses. Never let your excuses be greater than your goal and your desire. Self-doubt. Self-doubt just robs you of any confidence and your desire and your motivation to go forward. Fear of failure. Fear is a liar. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So it's important that we do not let fear stop us, because most of the things that you fear, when you have actually gone on to do that thing, it was actually okay. And so it's important that we do not allow fear to stop us from stepping forward. Negative people in your circle. They are like a pin to the tire of your wheel. They will stop you from moving forwards. If you have negative people around you in your life, it's going to be your Achilles heel. So you need to make sure that you surround yourself with people that are going to be in line with your goals, your morals, and your vision, and people that's going to motivate you to move forward. When you're having those days when you're feeling low, they're the ones that will lift you up. Negative thinking, and as we've seen through the whole of this, we don't want those weeds, and they will grow if we don't pay careful attention. And negative self-talk. Sometimes we talk ourselves out of situations. Oh, I won't be able to do that. Oh, that's just going to be too hard for me. Oh, that's impossible. Oh, there's no way I can do that. And so we're constantly fueling our mind, our rads, and our brain to think, okay, that's going to be difficult. So it's very important that we give up these 6 traits. And it doesn't matter what success means to you or whatever it is that you want to do to become successful. These 6 traits will hamper them if you're operating out of them. So I want us to do a quick game here called Name It, Claim It, Bingo. And I want you to look through and I want you to write in the chat one of these that you're going to take forward for today to be that thing that you're going to operate in. You can choose more than one, but I just want you to add one onto the chat, one that you're going to take forward and saying, this is going to be mine. Connecting more with the community, yeah, via Zoom events too, good. What about others? What one are you going to take on? Trust in myself, absolutely. Absolutely. No one knows you like you. So definitely embracing growth. Yeah, it's important. That's the only way we change. Letting best be good enough. Yes. Perfectionism is really fear and anxiety riding shotgun in your mind. Loving your uniqueness. Absolutely. You, every single one of you was created uniquely. So don't follow others and die a copy. You are uniquely and wonderfully made. There is no one else like you. So don't fall victim to be what people are telling you you should be being. Yeah, overcoming limiting beliefs. Absolutely. And those beliefs, interestingly, limiting beliefs are what I like to call birds. They're like birds. You can't stop them from flying over your head, but you can stop them from nesting there. And so it's important that we stop these limiting beliefs from nesting on our heads and growing and causing carnage in our lives. Yep, and listening to your intuition. Absolutely. So we've got loads of different things that we can do. And, again, you can choose whichever ones you want for you, but apply them to your life. Have intention from today as you choose to operate in that. So remember this, small steps are better than no steps. So as long as you are on that journey, as long as you are trying, as long as you are doing something, then you can remember, no matter how bad things are, you're still way ahead of all of those that ain't trying anything new. So don't let a delay stop you from going forwards. When you fall down, don't give up, get up, because you still can finish your race. And so this is your life. Write it, or someone else will. And so there's an African proverb when it says that when the lion learns how to write, the story will no longer be told from the vantage point of the hunter. And so it's really important that we write our own lives, that we speak our own lives into existence, that we pay attention in what we think about what we want our life to be, because it's only then that we are able to write our own lives. Otherwise, other people, life, our negative thinking, and our inner critic and the rats will write it for us. Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculpture. And change is never easy because you have to cut away things of yourself. You have to cut away bad habits. You have to make an effort to do those things. And that can be scary. So I want to encourage you to trust the process, because if you're a diamond in the rough, as you go through pressure and heat, you will come out shining bright. So just a few bits before we go into the Q&A. Just to tell people about my YouTube channel, I do post previous webinars and videos that I do on there. I will be posting some bits of this. I'm not going to post the whole thing because for people who paid, it's not right that I put everything on there where you've paid for it and others haven't. But I will be posting some bits of this on there. If any of you do want to watch the whole webinar again, I can send you a link which will only be open to you lot, and you can watch it again whenever you need to, because you've paid for this webinar. Subscribe as well and hit the bell so that whenever I do post something new, you will get it automatically. I will be posting up I try and do something once a week, but sometimes it's a bit less than that, but you'll pick up all the new stuff if you've clicked the bell and subscribed. This is the part where I ask for your help. So one of the things that I would like you to do is on your phone or on your computer, screenshot it or take a picture of this page. And I would like you to then post it on your social media. And it's just a way to promote this and so that others can know about this service and these webinars, so that if they're interested, they can then go onto my website and sign up. So I'll just give you a second to do that. And the quote which is on the page is something that's important to remember. Forgive yourself for the mistakes of your past. You've carried that prison sentence for way too long. Your past mistakes was meant to be a lesson and not a prison sentence. So it's okay to forgive yourself and to move on. This is just my contact details. It's going to be on the pack that you're going to get anyway. But one of the things I do want to point your attention to for those who may be interested, I do have a WhatsApp group, which is called Edifying Principles. If any of you are interested in being added to that, every Monday I post a motivational message that goes out to everyone. And with this particular WhatsApp group, it's one-way traffic. So I've got it so that only I can send out the messages. So you're not going to be bombarded with people posting all this stuff on there. It's just once a week, every Monday, you'll get a motivational message. So if you're interested in that, then when I send out the email afterwards, just respond to it with your number. So in summary, let's look at what we've covered today, because we've covered quite a lot. So we looked at thought processes. So every thought is a seed and you are the gardener. So it's important today for you to know now you have the power. Watch out for the weeds because they will grow if you don't pay attention. We also looked at the subconscious mind, which fuels our habits, our memories, our beliefs, our fears, and the subjective maps of our reality. Some of us may need to go back and look if we want to change and adapt some of those beliefs that don't serve us so that we can make better habits and have better memories in terms of what we do going forwards. We looked at our RAS, which helps your brain to create connections and remember things. Very important that you use the tools that were given to you. Take that picture on your phone and have it as a screenshot to remind yourself of that thing that you want to do, and you will find that it becomes easier to do. Mind traps, we looked at the different types of mind traps that can impact on us, and we also looked at the role that attitude plays in our circumstances. We spoke about stress and cortisol and the various ways that cortisol can impact on us due to the high levels of stress that we have. And by using some of the strategies that we looked at today, you can reduce your stress levels, which means you reduce your cortisol levels, which means you can have better resilience. We spoke about gratitude. So something that all resilient people share in common. They tune into the good things in their world. We looked at the science of sleep, and we saw that there is a direct relationship between lack of sleep and resilience levels. And we also saw the benefits of when we're around water and in water of what it can do for us. We spoke about mindfulness, and we looked at some of the studies and the results, the great results that came from doing mindfulness, even after doing it for a month. And it's about being present and being aware of our thoughts through a gentle and nurturing lens. And finally, we looked at the 5 ways of well-being. 5 simple things that each and every one of you can do as a daily part of your life to build your resilience. So, I would like us to just do a quick poll before we go into the Q&A. And it's just to answer how you found this webinar in terms of stars. Give you a couple more seconds. We've got 2 more to still answer. So that's a 5 for 5. Excellent. So everyone's answered. Thank you. And I'm glad that everyone has enjoyed it. And I'm glad that people got a lot from it. Excellent. So, what is one thing that you will take away from this webinar today? And so you can unmute now. We can start to talk. What is one thing that people will take away? I know there may be more than one, but what's one thing that you'd like to share that you will take away from this webinar today?
Yeah, for me, Ezra, it'll be challenging that critic, that inner critic, that voice that tells me that I can't, I've never done it before,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
fear that grips me at times, especially when it comes to speaking in publicly in
Yes.
front of large groups.
Yes.
So challenging them thoughts, really.
Yeah. Definitely. Good. So
For
someone
me,
said,
I think,
oh, so, yeah, go on,
yeah.
go on.
So, yeah. For me, I think it's being more conscious of the RAS. So try to do more of that.
Yes.
So that kind of makes an imprint in my mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, for me, actually, the same as well. I like the idea of actually taking a screenshot of an intention and actually committing to it that way.
Yes. Yes, definitely. It's good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I
but,
can hear. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely when you describe the egg and that, you know, the difference between
Yes.
breaking outward or
Yes.
breaking inward.
Yes.
And I think that's so powerful for even a young child to kind of have that as a vision every day.
Yes.
To just think of that. So yeah, that was really powerful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one in the chat where it says that it's okay to be assertive with negative people. Absolutely. I would say it's paramount to be assertive with negative people, because otherwise they will just keep you in that zone of negativity. So yeah, absolutely. So this is not the end of the story. For those of you who may be thinking, what else is next? What's Ezra got next online? I will be doing a networking with purpose workshop on the 9th of July. I know that a couple of people are already signed up to it. What it's going to be focusing on is reflecting over the common mistakes that people make when networking with people, and that's in all different forms and shapes. It's to gain a clear understanding of how to prepare for a networking event, or if you're going to meet someone and you want to discuss things around your business or an idea that you have. It's also going to look at the influential and effective tools to use when networking, because there is specific tools that we can use when we're networking to make it be effective. Have more awareness about the art of communication that facilitates effective networking. So there is specific things that we can do and be aware of to make it be more effective and enhance that engagement. Explore the power of emotional intelligence and how it shapes your thinking. And finally, we'll have an opportunity to practice your networking skills with your peers. So all that you go through and discuss in the session, you'll then have a chance to practice it with like-minded people who have just learned the same things as you. So that's all that I will share about today. Also, to let you know, in the beginning of August, I'm going to be doing a 7-part Living Your Best Life webinar series. It's going to be free as well. So it's going to be 7 sessions. It's going to be 30 minutes long for each session, covering a different topic each week. So I'll send the information about that as well in the email that I send after this. So over to you guys now. Is there any questions that people have and would like to ask in this time?
So I just want to say, because I'm going to have to go in a minute, Ezra, I just thought the whole thing was very uplifting, inspirational, and there were so many golden nuggets in there that, you know, that I will spend a lot of time mulling over, and I wrote loads and loads of notes, but if you can also send me the recording, that'd be great.
I will do.
And I also think that for £8.50, it was pretty priceless. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would also echo Usha's thoughts. I thought it was incredible value for money. And, you know, I just hope that through more marketing, more people, and through us as well, sharing
Absolutely.
your Instagram details, that, you know, we could get the message out there more.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of food for thought. It's a bit of a theme with all of the webinars I've been to that you've given. You
Yeah.
give a lot of food for thought, and I will take it away and reflect on it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Ezra, I like all your webinars, what you've invited me to, the ones that were free, the ones that I've paid for. I always get a lot from them, and yeah, it's worth more. It's priceless, like that woman, Ashra said. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you anyway, Ezra. I've been working all day today, so yeah, this was a nice end to the day.
Yes.
And you know, I wasn't sleeping in the background because you always keep me up and motivated.
That's
So
good.
and it was lovely, and although it's been such a lovely day, it was like everybody said, it's been priceless being here. And I'm you know, glad that I could be part of your journey, and like everybody else is saying, hopefully we can get the word out so that you can do more and more of these events and not forget us along the way.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm very loyal to people who've supportive of me. Definitely,
I'm
and
only
that's
joking.
why as well. No, but on a serious note, that's why as well. I like to do things that are free as well, because it is about, you know, helping the community, helping people to grow, because that's very much what I'm about. Helping people to grow. I mean, I do have a business, so sometimes I do need to charge, but that's why I wanted to do living your best life, and it's going to be great. So I hope you all do come along to that, because it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you
And
very much.
just think, if it wasn't for COVID, we probably never would have met.
That's very true. That's very true. And you know what I spoke about in my last webinar about, you know, the fear of going online, and that, you know, COVID-19 forced me to.
Yeah.
And it's been a great journey. Like it's resilient. That's what resilience does. Resilience. It was a situation that I had to adapt to, and because I did, I grew through the struggle. And now all of this is happening as a result of that. So, you know, it is really important that we do face those things that we find difficult, because it can be great for us. Excellent.
Yeah, I want to say thank you as well.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Sophie.
Yes, I did. I don't feel very comfortable speaking in these situations. So
that's fine.
I was very happy it was a chat button, even though I couldn't find it in the beginning, but I did in the end.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Cool. Thank you.
Excellent. Are you talking there, Krupa, or are you? Because I can't hear you. You got it on mute.
No.
Yeah, there is. I can hear you now. Yeah.
No. Oh.
Yeah.
We're just trying to speak earlier, and then yeah. Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah. I'm really thank you for that. I really enjoyed that. So many things that you went through, I have challenges with, like on a day-to-day basis. So there's so much I'll be able to use daily and reflect back on. So it was definitely priceless. And it was like at points it was like that was written for me. Like it was because there's things that I do every day. And the thing with mindfulness, I didn't realize how powerful it is. And the stats that you gave, because I've done it in the past, but didn't realize that it can really make that much of a difference. And procrastination, I do a lot of that every day. So I think mindfulness is something I should definitely put into my daily routine. So I'm going to really look into that.
Excellent.
And also I'm going to let my sister know, because she could really the networking one, I'm going to let my sister know. It'll really help her out.
Yeah. Please do. When I send that information, please do forward it on to people so that they can know about it, and if they do want to, they can join. Excellent. So I want to thank you all for your time today, and I hope that you know, as you did, you got something from it. And do your homework. Write your gratitude list. Make sure you put that picture on your phone, because when you're looking at it 110 times a day, it's going to be reinforcing your RAS, you know, and pay attention to your thoughts so that you can operate out of those positive thoughts rather than allowing the weeds to grow. And I know that if you do these things, you will succeed in all you put your hands to. So I wish you all the best, and say take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye,
Have a
everyone.
good evening. Bye.
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 Bye.